KingofPodcasts.com proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Brought to you by KingofAmazon.com. KOP is all about Amazon, and so should you. Go to King of Podcasts special link at KingofAmazon.com.
Back once again for another Wrestling is Real podcast. Thanks for being here. Tonight's program is going to be a little different because it's not going to be so much of a full rant that I'm going to go from start to finish. Because even with this being a pretty busy month of wrestling, believe it or not, when you look at what we have coming up, well, we have Impact Wrestling Bound for Glory and Hell in a Cell capping off the month of October. And then we go into AEW Full Gear, roughly a week after that. And so the thing is, I look at what's going on, and I don't know. We have been in a very interesting WrestleMania offseason, which is going to get more interesting as we are working our way through the pandemic. And there's a lot of things that needs to be said about what's happening in the state of Florida when it comes to wrestling. There's a lot that we got to talk about that a little bit later on. But when it comes down to it, we have the draft this weekend. As I record, coming up this Friday and this coming Monday. Okay. So, it is a complete distraction. More so than ever. Now, last year the draft was a real good gimmick. A really good gimmick for WWE to get things started with SmackDown. And with Raw on their new seasons, on their new broadcast deals, right? That's one of the things you also have to consider as well. But then what it comes down to is, if you decide to switch some things around, what significant difference will be made? Well, I can say this. Let's get to the original point. When I look at the current setup of Raw and SmackDown right now, we definitely know that Raw is in bad need of some help. Does it make a difference right now what they're going to do if they decide to go ahead and move certain stars over from Raw to SmackDown? Because obviously that's where a lot of podcasters, my fellow podcasters, are going to be talking about this weekend, right? They're going to talk about, they're going to really maybe mock draft it like I would a fantasy football draft, right? They're going to do that. Fine. Go for it. But does it make much of a difference to me? No. Because it still comes down to the real facts. What's really going on right now with everything that's going on? Well, you look at the numbers for Raw and SmackDown. Raw has been consistently hitting some rough spots since Monday Night Football came back. Now, it did take a nice jump up last week, but it went back down again this week to near record lows. For SmackDown, they are hitting over 2 million viewers pretty consistently. So they're doing okay now. SmackDown still has a lot more room to move up, which is fine. But the thing is, the momentum is on SmackDown with Roman Reigns, with Sasha Banks and Bayley. And that's where I see things are. On the other side, Raw with Retribution and the Hurt Business, and a lot of, when Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, just doing that, and seeing Lana get hit through a table every week now for 3 weeks straight. And by the way, no Raw Underground this week. And even when you had a straight wrestling for 3 hours, still didn't make a difference. It wouldn't make a difference if you cut the show to 2 hours. And you have to think about the fact that even if they try to put new people on the main roster into Raw, where they would like to try to inject some new energy, they've been doing that and they have failed. Keith Lee getting into an impromptu match with an unsanctioned match with Braun Strowman is a big note of desperation. Trying to keep him relevant. Let's just make him a super heavyweight against a super heavyweight, because that's how Vince McMahon looks at him. He looks at a fat guy. That's how he looks at him. He's fat. Why do I want this fat guy on TV? Doesn't matter about his ability. Doesn't matter Keith Lee's ability, his promo ability, nothing like that. No. Just looks like a fat guy on TV. You know? Can't just be that. I mean, he's got to be the big guy without being looked at as fat. Put a singlet on him. That's how I feel like they put him as. It's kind of stupid, but it's true. When you look at Drew McIntyre, yeah, he's still strong, but you know how many times we need to get Randy Orton back into the picture? Over and over and over. We looked at Clash of Champions. The stronger matches came from the SmackDown side. So, if you're looking at it from, you know, just a conventional perspective, yes, for WWE, they need to go ahead and put more effort into having the draft benefit Raw. And who gives a shit about if SmackDown or Raw wins in the draft? It doesn't make a difference at all. What needs to happen is that there needs to be a little bit of evening out to inject some new interest into Raw. So I don't know who you put over there. I mean, there's a few things like that you could do. It would absolutely be where you would just make some changes just to get some interest going on over there. Sure. And there's probably a couple of wrestlers you could probably bring up that might be good for that. Sure. So we look at what CBS Sports did, and they talked about this. All right. Well, let's see what they did. Just for shits and giggles. So Adam Silverstein, Brent Bookhouse put out a story. And they went through their own mock draft. And they're saying this. They're talking about the idea of Big E being moved to Raw, Sasha Banks to SmackDown, Seth Rollins and Murphy together staying on Raw, Randy Orton staying on SmackDown. For whatever reason, they put Becky Lynch in the picture and Charlotte Flair, which I don't think there are any factors at all. AJ Styles recommended the Raw. Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss, you keep them on SmackDown. Because obviously there are certain attractions. I think Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss is another storyline that's going to work. I really do. So that stays there as well. Bianca Belair stays on Raw. SmackDown, the Usos will keep. They're also recommending Kevin Owens going to SmackDown. Aleister Black staying on Raw. Daniel Bryan staying on SmackDown. Keith Lee stays on Raw. They also put NXT stars, but NXT stars are not eligible for the draft. So some names that they considered here, no. Matt Riddle considered to Raw. Samoa Joe staying on Raw. Andrade Angel Garza staying on Raw. Mustafa Ali and Retribution, they're recommending possibly going to SmackDown. Heavy Machinery to SmackDown. Sonya Deville to Raw. Braun Strowman to SmackDown. I think Braun Strowman probably works better on Raw for whatever reason, because he's much of a mess right now. I don't think you can just completely give up on the guy yet. You make him the Big Show. You know, there's a lot of stars that he can go ahead and run over as the big guy giant, taking out the smaller talent, and put some kind of a storyline like that. I don't know who, but you could do something. Dare I say, what if you decided to put Seth Rollins and Strowman together as an alliance going after the Mysterios? Just a thought. Just a consideration. Riot Squad to Raw. Miz and Morrison staying on SmackDown. Shorty G, they recommend going to Raw. Baron Corbin going to Raw. I agree with both of those. Lucha House Party to Raw. Again, it's because of the fact that if we're going to get the shows kind of shuffled around, then let's make one show really good. And then find something to do with the Raw roster. Because I think Raw is the show that's not the focus. You want to make the SmackDown show the best it possibly can be. And Raw, you make it the repository where you start filtering out who's good and who doesn't. You load the rejected from SmackDown over to Raw. Raw needs to be considered right now the B show it is. SmackDown is the focus because of the audience, because of the coverage for everything. It just, in all intents and purposes, SmackDown needs to be the more important show, and it is right now. So make it more important than it was. That's my point. Nikki Cross to Raw. Ricochet to SmackDown. Drew Gulak staying on Raw. Mandy Rose going to Raw. And Naomi and Humberto Carrillo going to SmackDown. That's the idea. And that's the idea that they had for this mock draft. I mean, there was other things they could consider, but that was just one thought that came into play. I thought it was kind of interesting. And then Sportskeeda comes out with a story, which I swore I was not going to read about them because of how they treated me when I tried to write a story for them, and they rejected it. Anyways, so they brought up a few things here. Danny Hart wrote about the new rule change, Roman Reigns' brand destination, and other things. So 50 superstars and tag teams were drafted during the two-night draft last year. 18 later assigned to Raw or SmackDown. Other stats were the first night featured 4 rounds of 5 draft picks. 20 superstars and tag teams were drafted. SmackDown, on Raw, they had 30 superstars drafted. 6 rounds of 5 draft picks. Now, WWE has not announced yet the draft pools or rules for the draft, but we do know that over 80 superstars and tag teams are eligible to feature in this year's roster changes. So there are 5 overall things they say that need to be done. Number 1, WWE must clarify how long superstars are contracted to a brand, they say. So now, Bruce Pritchard was on his Something to Wrestle with podcast, saying that people should not, quote, try to apply logic to an illogical situation when it comes to wrestling storylines. In regards to roster changes, he says, there's an illogical flaw in the system that's cropped up over the last 2 drafts. It's a bullshit argument. I'm just thinking, storylines are already not too consistent and not taken very seriously, so this kind of idea was really bullshit. Next, WWE must draft rivals to the same brand. So, yeah, they're saying bring people together so there's no need for wild card rules or brand-to-brand invitationals or other loopholes. That if you're going to have matches done, then keep the rosters separate. But there's always going to be some crossover anyway. They always do that. Like, as soon as you have this, next month we have Survivor Series where everybody takes on everybody. As things like that. Like, they're going to lead up the Survivor Series, and they're going to start having some crossover going on anyway. It's just what they decided to do with Survivor Series. Not the way I like it, but that's what they've been doing. And that's the way the gimmick is, which waters down one of the big 4 shows of the year. To the point, I don't even consider Survivor Series being one of the big shows. I just think it's a fluff for that 4th show of the year. So what they're saying is, if this year's brands moves are going to be taken seriously, WWE must ensure that rivalries between Raw and SmackDown superstars do not continue the weeks that follow. Got it. So Rollins and Murphy are going to be in the Hell in a Cell later this month. Those 2 superstars should stay on the same brand in the draft. If WWE is going to assign over 80 superstars to a specific brand, there is no way that they should be allowed to show up on a different brand simply because they have an issue with somebody on that show. So that's another thing that was brought up here. Another thing is they're talking about general managers coming back. Okay. So Paul Heyman working as executive director of Raw when the 2019 draft took place last year. Eric Bischoff, a slightly different role, but the same job title as SmackDown. Remember, we had the executive directors. And that's all different at this point. We don't have that kind of direction. So the draft can be whatever it wants. So the idea was Heyman and Bischoff would have been good on-screen representatives for their brands during the draft pick announcements, but instead Stephanie McMahon did it. While Stephanie always does a great job as an authority figure, her character always has the power these days to make those kind of announcements. Does her character have that power? And the thing is, we don't have separate managers like we did, where Daniel Bryan was manager of SmackDown and Mick Foley was the one for Raw and all that stuff. I don't think that makes much of a difference either. Again, that doesn't make anything. The other thing, too, is we're seeing some people making decisions that are really kind of the whole spectrum, right? Adam Pearce, Stonehands, and Pat Buck making decisions on matches where there are no GMs or commissioners. Well, we're seeing right now that there are no wrestling brands at all that have commissioners or general managers, period. Do we? Of all the major brands we have, no one's doing that. But yet in this story, they think there should be general managers. I disagree. Just because we used to have general managers or commissioners doesn't mean we need to have one now. Because it's not a consistent thing having a governing body, not like it used to be. It worked on a time. Now, maybe that would not be a bad idea to have that, say, for Raw. Because Raw really needs some kind of structure of veterans around. And listen, they got Shawn Michaels sitting around there, or they have Christian back there, or the Big Show, or whatever you want. You can let some of those stars take some points here and kind of build off of. Why not? You want Ric Flair back there, bring him back out. The thing is, there's some things you can be doing where you can use some of that because you need. The reason for the general manager, to me, is you need people with promo ability. That's what I think really helps more than anything. If you have people with, even Kurt Angle to a point wasn't as effective because he's not the greatest promo. He's a great wrestler. But even his promos were like, he did good promos. He did a lot of things good, especially in the Attitude Era at the tail end. But it's different now. Kurt Angle can do like a straight up promo. He can do promos effectively for matches. But as a general manager, just as a role, I didn't think it worked as well. But I think that's what you do here. And you don't want Shane McMahon doing that either because he's not the best promo either. My thing is, I think you want to have where we would like, listen, one thing we like with the Authority when you had working with Seth Rollins is because Triple H was doing a lot of talking and kind of leading up. Where you see Paul Heyman supporting Roman Reigns, it's a great compliment. The same thing should happen here. Where you have certain stars that can be run off each other and you have people that just know how to talk. I don't know what you do. Would you bring Jerry Lawler to do that? I don't know. But, that's what I'm saying. Who are the most available people they can bring on board on a regular basis to do some of this kind of stuff? People with promo ability, really some classic superstars that know what they're doing, that can talk. That's what you're bringing on board. That's what you want as general managers over on Raw. If you want to have an authority figure on Raw, that's what needs it the most. Not so much what you need over on SmackDown. It just doesn't need it. In a way, and you might think I'm wrong, but Baron Corbin was kind of effective. Well, and also I'll tell you this. For whatever reason, also you just need to have figures that are very, very, domineering. Because remember, after Kurt Angle was let go after the match he did with at WrestleMania 35, Kurt Angle or Baron Corbin doing General Manager Raw, it was not a great time, but I think it was still better than he was. I think putting him back in that kind of a role doesn't hurt. Like, he's a hateable guy. Do we want to see him in the ring on a regular basis? I think his promos are better than his ring work. Am I wrong? Just take him out of that stupid Kane figure. I think you could make him an authority figure that somebody hates, and you put him in matches just like you did before. I thought some of that actually worked. Because he is a piece of shit heel that would work as a general manager. That would be pretty effective. Retribution doing his dirty work. I don't know. It could work. I don't know. There's just not that many people they have that could put in that role. There's nobody that's effective to do right there. That's a big problem. But anyways, the next thing they bring up here is surprises in the draft pools. So people coming back out of nowhere. The 2019 draft format certainly made a nice change from the chaotic superstar shakeup system. The draft pool's announcement meant there was no room for surprises on either night of the draft. So if WWE would release, this is the same idea, the same argument of the Royal Rumble, having all the participants come in, you want to have surprises. That there should be a couple of to be confirmed superstars that come into the mix. And more importantly than anything else, SmackDown needs to keep Roman Reigns. I completely agree. Roman Reigns is in the best spot right now. That guy is going to catapult to John Cena level stardom. That's going to happen. With Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss, I feel something here that's brewing. I think this is the thing that I think was missing with Bray Wyatt's character. I think the Joker to his Harley Quinn, I feel that is here. That coming together, they did a pretty good job of that. The storytelling right now on SmackDown has been much better. Period. You see progression in storylines that have been pretty well done. I must admit, it's been really good. So it's no question at all. Keep the Universal Champion on SmackDown, and that's it. But you really need to stack the deck for Raw, and then you start looking at which stars are not going to make it. And honestly, I think what you do as well is you need to go ahead and do something to help build up the NXT brand, because they are getting a little worn down who they have. So why not go ahead and take some of those stars on the Raw roster that are not making the cut to the audience and move them to NXT? That's what I think they should do. And the truth is, with Raw, you find a way to kind of work that roster, make it a little bit bigger. Some more variety on the roster. Surrounded by some certain matches that you need to have. But I think there's a good structure on SmackDown. It works. And I believe that SmackDown's doing some of the things right to get themselves in the right direction to move forward. To get some more things going to make things interesting. One thing I would say for myself is to take Heavy Machinery and move them over to Raw. Mandy Rose is already over there, basically, but I would go ahead and make that move now. And just for the sole purpose of letting Otis do something with that stupid briefcase and being done with it. What a waste of that stupid briefcase. It's nothing against Otis. He's not a single star. It never made sense to do that. But they did it because they thought it would be funny, and there we are. And now Otis is doing nothing with it. They need to do something with it, put that on the line, and kind of retcon that whole story, because that was a major mistake, giving him the Money in the Bank briefcase, because there is no way to pay that off correctly. There's just no way to do it. And they need to understand that. Now, there's a few other things I want to bring up here that I thought were kind of interesting, is that Florida is becoming a very big conduit when it comes to wrestling. And the potential for wrestling to come back in a big way. This is being a little bit underreported, but I think it's very important to bring up. So a couple stories I want to bring up now that really say everything about this. And then what I want to do a little bit later on is I want to talk about Impact Wrestling's Bound for Glory show coming up later this month, because it's time to start talking about that, start stirring up the pot about that, because they've been doing some good things. Let me start first with a story that came out over the weekend that I did not bring up after NXT TakeOver in the post show I did this past Sunday right here at WrestlingIsReal.com. By the way, take a look at the website. I did redesign it. I think it looks much better, much easier, but more things you can see up there compared to what I had before. So take a look at it for yourself. Make sure to go ahead and bookmark WrestlingIsReal.com. That's where you find everything you need to know about the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you find it. I need to add the link to Amazon Music, where the show is now available. Of course, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. It's all available there. And I would also recommend, please do subscribe and please rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher, because it has been sticking there at just a couple of ratings, especially since I moved it over, because I had to make changes to the feed a few years ago. Like, I understand one thing with this show is that for the sake of being able to make some money on the show and moving the podcast over to a different feed, I lost a number of people that did not realize that I moved the show because I moved from Libsyn to Spreaker. And so I did take a hit in audience, and, that's what's going to happen. What can I do? And I'm so glad that a lot of you did find your way back to find the show, and you've come back to the show in spades, and the audience is coming back, and I love that. And I hope a lot of you will realize the show's back. I'm just seeing a lot more people actually subscribing on Apple Podcasts. And for those of you, I thank you greatly. And I'm continue to encourage you to do the same. And please do that. That will be gratefully helpful. One other thing I want to also do before I get into the stories from Florida is that coming up this weekend, or actually next week as I record, a great thing is happening. Amazon Prime Day. Here's the thing. When you go to kingofamazon.com, that is the door that opens to the Amazon store that I hope all of you will consider to join with me, looking at the great stuff that's going to go on with Prime Day, the biggest shopping day of the year on Amazon. And you can go through and help out this podcast right here greatly by shopping on Prime Day, October 13th, all day. Make sure October 13th, mark it on your calendar. Go to kingofamazon.com. Please go to kingofamazon.com. I implore you. And just buy some of the great deals they're going to have. At this moment, they already have some exclusive deals that are already getting ready to go. They have deals going on TVs that are up to 33% off. Prime members will be able to save $30 on Echo Auto. There's Echo Show 5 that's available at $45 off. Then you have other deals where you could sign up for Amazon Prime, which I do. I have the Amazon Fire Stick. I watch Amazon Prime on my TV, and I love it. 4K, HD, everything looks great. Lots of great shows up on Amazon. Utopia, Man in the High Castle, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. You know what's up there. It's great. So you go there and you're saying to yourself, man, it's so much good going on. So much good programming. I have an Amazon Tap, which I use. I'm an Amazon guy. I buy it because I love it. And I go to Amazon almost every week and I'm buying stuff from there. Because there's so much I could buy. I buy multivitamins. I buy, a lot of products when I go grocery shopping that I don't need to buy at Walmart or Publix or Winix or wherever I go shopping at, or Target. I can just go get on Amazon, get it in bulk, as if I were going to BJ, Sam's Club, or Costco, and pay less. I can buy allergy medication at bulk for less. A lot of stuff. Cleaning supplies I can buy for less. I buy a lot of food stuff. You want to buy crackers, cookies, all that kind of stuff? Do you want to just buy whatever? There's a lot of stuff up there you could buy at bulk, and it's cheap. If I want to buy simple things for health and beauty, if I want to buy shaving cream or razors, if I want to buy shampoo, I want to buy soap, I want to buy conditioner. I buy all of that on Amazon, and I save a lot. Because of the idea is it is saving money, because a lot of stuff at the grocery stores are getting much more expensive. You see that. And there's a lot of times there's things I don't want to buy in the store that I'm not going to be able to find at a Walmart or a Best Buy or what have you. And I go buy it on Amazon. We used to have shorts like Radio Shack to buy electronic equipment. For those of you podcasters out there, you need new equipment. You want to buy a new microphone? Buy a new boom. You want to buy an arm so you can put the microphone on. You want to buy new cables, USB cords, chargers for your phone. For my phone, man, buying glass, the Gorilla Glass screen protectors, buying OtterBox covers, everything for a phone. I'll buy all that and save me paying $10 to $15 on insurance on a phone. When if you're buying a new iPhone, do you want to buy Apple Care, or do you want to go ahead and put something on you can put on that'll be pretty easy, convenient for you to protect your phone and do that, or your device, whatever it is. Got an Amazon Fire tablet. It's great. Very easy to read. Video looks great. Picture looks great. And very easy to navigate. And if you're a Prime member, which I've been for the last 4 years, I save on all the shipping, which I save like several $100. I make my money back on it. And I also got Audible, which I love too. All that's available here. So here's the thing. Prime members, you can actually buy bundles and save $45 off on Kindles. Their own cameras. Echo Auto. So you can have Echo in your automobile. $19.99. They're bringing it down from $49.99 to $19.99. You can also share a photo of what you're doing to win a $1,000 Amazon gift card. You can save up at Prime Video when you want to buy video on demand, like new movies coming out. You can save up to 50% on movies and more. Then they have their own brand of clothing, which, by the way, they got a lot of good stuff. I'm a big and tall guy, so I got to buy big and tall brands. They got to deal with DXL. They have Amazon Basics, their own basic brand of clothing and supplies. And it's like you want to buy hoodies, you want to buy jackets, you want to buy shorts, you want to buy gym clothes, buy shirts, whatever. They have Amazon Basics, and they're great prices, and it's great quality, all of it. I guarantee you. 40% on their own brands right now. And they have other deals you're doing as well. College supplies. You're in college right now. You're going to the dorms. You're going back right now because of COVID. 20% off. You can also buy up to 30% on smart lights, plugs, robotic vacuums, and more. If you're looking for furniture, rugs, beds, chairs, by the way, I bought an ottoman to go with my lazy boy chair that I sit on to do this recording of this show. I bought an ottoman. The ottoman's great. Like, I didn't buy a recliner. I wanted to put something to put my feet on. So I bought an ottoman for $40. And it's one of those you can pull up the top, and I could store stuff in. So I got to put stuff in and I got to store it. I can do that right then and there too. Easy to do. So I do that as well. It's pretty simple when you think about it. So I do that as well. And it's pretty simple to do. And remember, if you want to be a Prime subscriber, you should go do it on Prime Day and then be taking advantage of all this they do. Because on Amazon Prime, your deliveries can be 1 to 2 days for free. You're not paying $4, $6, $10 for shipping, which every other website makes you do. You got video of what you're going to watch on a Fire Stick. Thousands of movies, TV shows, and their own original stuff. Amazon Music, which again now has podcasting. And you got 2 million free songs, playlists, podcasts, and more. And then you also have access to Prime Wardrobe and only pay for what you keep. Like, it's all there. There's so much more to go to it. But again, Amazon Prime Day, please mark it on your calendar. It's coming up Tuesday, October 13th. Mark it on your calendar. Tuesday, October 13th is Prime Day. And go to kingofamazon.com. Kingofamazon.com. Please do that. Help out the show. I don't make this kind of normal plea here, but this is the best time to do it for this show. And also, bookmark kingofamazon.com when you do want to do your shopping for Christmas. You know, I know some of you people are scared shitless because the media and everybody else has made you scared to go out. And maybe you just don't want to go out wearing a mask and feel scared of social distancing when you can't do it because everybody's going to be going out at the same time. Sure. So then what you do is make it easy. I do it every year. Christmas, I go to Amazon. Sometimes it should make it as simple as just buying Amazon gift cards. And I do it. And it's great. Or buy gift cards on there that they have of millions of places you can go to. Pretty simple Christmas gift. There's a lot of great Christmas gifts I bought on Amazon. You should too. Think about it. Kingofamazon.com. I have it up there for a reason because I bought the URL because I know that there are people out there that will buy products and that you will consider going there. And I'm not telling you to buy anything you need to buy that you don't need to buy. That's the whole point. There's a lot of stuff that you could do where people are trying to offer, hey, buy this shirt or buy this Patreon account or subscribe to this. No, subscribe to stuff that's free. And if you want to do something to help out the show, you know, you want to donate? Sure. I got a PayPal link. I put it out there every week. Nobody's donating to it, but that's fine. But the one way you could definitely support this show and be a real supporter is not by money. And you could do it by sharing the link, sharing the website, wrestlingisreal.com. Let the people know about the show. Let people know that I am a different voice than everybody else in wrestling podcasts because I've been doing this for a long time. I'm a long-time viewer, Longtime fan of wrestling. But my thing is, I'm not here to go ahead and just beat around the bush and just play along as if there's nothing wrong. I'm not in the wrestling bubble. I look at things from a realistic perspective, business-wise, content-wise, all that. I'm a media guy. What I went to school for. What I went to college for. So when I see wrestling can be better, and I remember what wrestling was like in the heyday and what it can be, I don't expect that Raw, SmackDown, AEW, Impact Wrestling, anybody else, I don't expect anybody to get 7 million viewers again. I mean, they couldn't even get that now for the NBA Finals right now. It's hurting so bad. But what can be done is if everything worked right, I'm moving back into wrestling. I'm getting off the advertising front. Okay, I got off my soapbox. Even with the draft, I think there's a realistic thought, an expectation that SmackDown could get back to 4 to 5 million viewers. I don't see why it couldn't do that by the end of their contract. If they got their stuff right, Roman Reigns took off, Alexa Bliss with Bray Wyatt took off, a few other things made interest of the brand that really took off, then sure, why not? I think it would be very interesting. I think it would be exciting to have wrestling again be back at the forefront. It always has a cycle of being not so cool and then it becomes cool again. It can absolutely happen. And let me tell you, the gift that they have of a dream match that could be down the line that would be an absolute box office is Roman Reigns versus The Rock. There's not even a question there. That is the dream match right now that everybody in wrestling would enjoy. Nothing that I enjoyed more this week when I was watching SmackDown was the Roman Reigns storyline as a tribal chief. I love that storyline. And I'll tell you what, Roman Reigns is already elevated to the superstardom now. He is bona fide. That guy, if he's on TV with Paul Heyman, you're watching. I was so engulfed and so involved in that storyline. Last week, I was looking forward to seeing what they were going to do with Roman Reigns at the start of the show. Fallout from Clash of Champions. They did a great job with that. Paul Heyman must be intricately involved with that. What a great storyline. The whole story of it. And honestly, Paul Heyman, just the way he started, knowing all the players. The whole Samoan family. Afa, Sika, Rikishi, all of it. High Chief Peter Maivia. I mean, damn. History lesson. The Samoan family in the storyline. Let me tell you, you absolutely want to keep going with the Samoan storyline right here. Tribal Chief is king. It's based. That's the word I'm using. Based. I would absolutely move Samoa Joe to SmackDown and have him involved in the storyline. He should. I think I said that last week, but he absolutely should do that. Samoa Joe should be a part of that whole storyline as well. I don't know what else you do. And I'll tell you what. You know, when you talk about some people they have, you know, if this Samoan storyline goes so well, Court Bauer and MLW, by the way, buddy, your champion, Junior Fatu, you better keep him signed up. Because let me tell you, if things worked out right, I could see where they could take Junior Fatu and they could take him back over there. Contra would get eliminated because of the fact that you had another big star you had down there that was doing great that could absolutely go and make his move over to WWE, possibly to be immediately into the story. I don't know. Just my thought. But for what it's worth, I still like what they did. Tribal Chief. That's just so good. And Michael Cole needs to drop the big dog altogether. Tribal Chief. This is key. Like, seriously, hashtag that shit. Tribal Chief is such a good phrase. Head of the table. This sticks. You realize that. People want to talk about it. If you're saying head of the table, tribal chief Roman Reigns, it's sticking. Roman Reigns is a likable. He's a heel that the guys are going to like somewhat. The girls are going to hate, or they're going to think that she's just cool. But Roman Reigns, they have transformed that character. This heel character is phenomenal. It's one of the best things that happened in WWE right now. And I'm telling you, they have hit gold again, I think. They're going to hit gold right now, pairing Alexa Bliss, having the sister Abigail to Bray Wyatt. I think that's a fantastic move. And I actually will admit, the Alexa Bliss character, the way they have her set now, and the Harley Quinn kind of look with the buns of hair that can easily come down, and she goes wild looking, that's awesome. Alexa Bliss becomes interesting. That's what happens here. I love it. Great, great stuff. Those are the things I think with the draft that you could find that could build that audience back up. So what you do is, that's what you build off of. Things like that. And for WWE, they need to figure out something that will work the same way on Raw. But just take a lot of players over there and see what will work. And what you do is, I think that brand requires an authority figure. Eliminate Raw Underground. Done. I don't know. Maybe Shane gets involved in something else. He's obviously back on TV again as an on-camera figure. Make him a general manager. I don't give a shit. Something. And if Shane McMahon's going to stay over in Raw, then let Kevin Owens go over to SmackDown, be done with it. But I think that's what you can do. Now, here's the other thing I got to make mention of as well. Very important. We know that the Thunderdome is only for another couple of weeks. I forget how long the residency is for. What we don't know yet is how long the residency at the Thunderdome is. And that's the one thing I'm waiting to find out about. As far as I know, I think it was going to be just only for a couple of months. At least that's what I heard from Wrestling Observer Newsletter, from what I remember. But things could change now. A couple of things that are significantly important that could bring wrestling back with live crowds. And Florida is the factor, the overlying factor. Here's what's going on. This week here in Florida where I live, Palm Beach County, we learned about announcements that WWE is planning to move the show originally for WrestleMania 37 that was scheduled to be at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California, because of the fact that it did not get hosted at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida. They're going to go ahead and move the show back to Tampa. So the original plan, the WrestleMania 36, that they had to put it in Tampa, they're just going to take that same idea for WrestleMania 37. The reason why is because we obviously know that fans are allowed to go now at a limited capacity, at the moment, a limited capacity to games in Florida. So AEW now has actual fans in pods, basically, at Daly's Place for a residency at Daly's Place right now because the Jacksonville Jaguars are owned by the Khans, so they can keep the show there in Jacksonville. So they've been able to keep crowds there, and they can actually pull like a decent crowd at Daly's Place or whatever they want for Full Gear coming up in November. And they're going to be the first ones to benefit from a new plan that was made. So news broke, as I record tonight, from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He's given clearance to the Miami Dolphins, as well as all sporting events in Florida, to have full capacity at their games. So that means at Hard Rock Stadium, where the Dolphins play, they could have up to 65,000 people. But at the moment, the team is still opting to have 25% at the stadium, so 13,000 fans at maximum capacity. So the idea is, right now, NXT is having selective fans at their shows and their Capitol Wrestling Center. So there were certain people in the audience, along with video screens and virtual screens for the crowd of fans that were watching on Zoom or wherever they were watching from. And the report also is that from WWE that they are reporting to leave the Thunderdome starting in November to hold outdoor events with fans. So this clearance and WWE is that they could move WrestleMania 37 back to Florida, and the company would be allowed to host as many fans as possible in the stadium. So again, they could get that 70,000 plus ticket, that kind of capacity, that attendance. They can get the attendance they want, sold out crowd for WrestleMania for the next show, and be one of the first shows to have a full crowd. Because I don't think Vince McMahon's necessarily worried about, he was somewhat worried, but of course he's always been the one that's kind of pushing ahead. He wants things going back to normal. That's his opinion, sure. So at the moment, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we already know, I'm a big Buccaneers fan, so I would follow the team. At Raymond James Stadium this past weekend, they played the LA Chargers, and they did have people in the stands, mostly friends and family, and the luxury boxes were open. For their game coming up in 2 weeks, they will have people in the stands. They will have fans. I think it's 25% they're going to have. Again, 65,000 seat stadium, so 13,000 fans will be there for the Bucs game in 2 weeks. But now again, Governor DeSantis has already opened the door. If people want to have games, we have to see who's going to do it first. Florida Gators will have games coming up. They could consider it. You can see the same thing for the Miami Hurricanes at Hard Rock Stadium. You can see the same thing for the Florida State Seminoles in Tallahassee. You can see the same thing for who knows who else. Because again, it's full capacity. It's a matter of who's going to do what. The Jacksonville Jaguars, same thing. We don't know yet. So there's been no word yet on whether the Buccaneers or the Jacksonville Jaguars will change direction with how many fans they'll allow in stadiums. And Andy Slater from WMEN 640 Sports was one that actually gave the scoop about that. That's the plan for that. So that's very important what they're going to be doing. Not sure what they're going to do. Now, one other thing I also noticed is that we didn't do a Hall of Fame ceremony this year because of what was going on with the pandemic. But what's happening now is that they will not be doing the Hall of Fame ceremony without foot. That hasn't happened. Reporting, I didn't realize about this, but we never talked about this, but that hasn't happened. So now they might have to be able to get that as well going on. Like, again, full-fledged WrestleMania. That will be the turning point for this company. And new fans, as long as they stay in Florida, then they're going to take advantage of the situation. But again, SoFi Stadium, they're going to leave that and Los Angeles because of the fact that California, and for New York in the same case, if they wanted to go back to MetLife Stadium, New York, New Jersey, California are still under some significant lockdowns. They're not anywhere near close to where Florida is, where they're in phase 3, where everything's basically back up. As of last week, the governor decided we're going to fully reopen businesses. All businesses can open up at 100% capacity. Still no mask mandate unless it was being directed by certain counties and certain local jurisdictions. So that's what's going on. So like for here, where I'm at, we still have masks. And you know what? I haven't mattered too much about that when they've had it. It's like, it's been okay. So at last check, the mask mandate is still in place here in Palm Beach County where I'm at. And also it's the same thing for Broward and Dade County where I live. That's just what they happen to do. So the latest executive order that came out, facial coverings must be worn in public when social distancing is impossible. Inside county businesses, government buildings, and while using county transportation. In response to the executive order, Palm Beach County can no longer fine individuals for refusing to wear masks. Business owners can still face fines for the COVID-19 compliance team if their customers do not wear masks. So the thing is, we have that in place now. And so, as far as I'm concerned, the mask mandate is still around. But again, nobody's being fined for wearing masks. So it's a thing where, some people will probably still respectfully wear masks, and that's what's going to happen. But we're in Florida, we're kind of just letting it out. So the thing is, we're on the way out of this. In Florida, whether people like it or not, that's just how it's going. That's the plan right now going on in the state of Florida. And other states are doing the same thing. But that's good for wrestling. If MLW wanted to start running shows back in Orlando, they could do that. If Ring of Honor wanted to go run shows like at, say, War Memorial in Fort Lauderdale or Lakeland at the Civic Center, whatever, they could do that now. And Florida will become a hotbed for wrestlers. Independents will start running in Florida. All doubt, wrestling shows, independents will start running in Florida all over. We'll see how it all works. It's been a very long year, as we all know. What can you do? Okay, let's go ahead and get to a couple of things. I did want to talk about Bound for Glory. Let's talk about that. So there was a show, the Impact Plus, a specific show called Victory Road, where Deonna Purrazzo, the virtuoso, who's the current Impact Wrestling Knockouts champion, took out Susie, who's been accompanied with Kylie Ray since their time at Wrestle House, and now Kylie Ray is going to take her number one contendership that she won back at Revolution. Now she's going to go ahead and take her chance at the Knockouts champion coming up at Bound for Glory. So currently on the card, some interesting matches we got. So right now we already know now that Eric Young, who recently defeated Eddie Edwards for the Impact World title, he will now be taking on Rich Swann. A match that now seems in doubt following the world-class Maniac destroying Swann's ankle in a physical therapy office. So the thing is, Rich Swann was attacked at the last pay-per-view. Well, Slammiversary, excuse me. That's what it was, Slammiversary. So we had that going on where Kylie Ray won the number one contendership, and then Eric Young attacking Rich Swann as they went on with that, and that's what happened there. And Deonna Purrazzo will put up the Knockouts title against Kylie Ray. And we also got confirmation from this past week's Impact Wrestling that the Motor City Machine Guns will defend the World Tag Team titles against three of the top teams in a fatal four-way: The North, The Good Brothers, and Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. That's actually a pretty good match. Good stuff that they're doing with the tag team division. It's pretty solid. Interesting is the X Division title, which no limits. And what's interesting now is they're deciding to go ahead and once again add another female to the mix. Where we saw Taya Valkyrie go after, I think it was the X Division title, or was it the world title? No, she did go after the world title when Tessa Blanchard held the belt. Well, Jordynne Grace now is being brought into the mix. She is now the latest female, the knockout that's getting a chance to work with the men. So she's going to be in a match for the X Division title. Rohit Raju is the current champion right now. Amazing how that works out. But yes, he is champion, and they've done a good way of doing that where he beat up and was able to beat Trey McGill and Chris Bay. I forget, was it? Yeah, something like that. So Rohit Raju won, and now he's going to go ahead and defend against TJP, Chris Bay, former X Division champion, Trey Miguel, Willie Mack, former X Division champion, and Jordynne Grace. Very interesting they're putting her in the match, but we have 4 matches right now on the card. Pretty good so far. We're still 2.5 weeks out. And of course, now that weekend, which is October 24th and 25th, we will have back-to-back shows to do. So keep in mind the schedule. I will be doing a post show solely for Bound for Glory on Saturday night, and I will do a post show solely for Hell in a Cell on Sunday the 25th. So look for those. That'll be a big weekend of podcast right here at WrestleGizReal.com. Make sure to stick around for that. We'll do that for you as well. That covers everything I want to talk about tonight. I appreciate all of you finding the show, as you always do, and checking in. Great stuff we did tonight. It was very kind of just free-flowing. I liked it. And we'll see what the draft gives us next week. That's what we're looking forward to. So come back this coming Wednesday, going on to Thursday, next week for another Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast, brought to you by KingofAmazon.com. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and on Facebook at Wrestling is Real. Subscribe to the Wrestling is Real podcast through all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. You can also look for episodes on his YouTube channel, youtube.com/JBRASCO951. You can find all this information and more by going to the website, WrestlingIsReal.com.